Hi, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Smith from the Institute for Responsible Technology. Now, I would like to ask you to help support our work, but first, I want to share with you some of the things that we have done and what makes our approach different, unique, and important in the world right now. So, I want to describe specifically our strategy for content, why it is that we produce what we do. When I started with GMOs back in 1996, the other nonprofits were just basically using 3 or 4 sentences about the health dangers. And we realized that consumer rejection of GMOs was critical to eliminate them from our food supply. And environmental concerns and farmer concerns and concentration of power was not going to do the trick. We needed to focus on the health dangers. And so we expanded those 4 sentences. I did a book called Seeds of Deception, which the subtitle was Exposing Industry and Government Lies About the Safety of the Genetically Engineered Foods You're Eating. And it was done in story format, long form, so people could understand what was really going on. Now, we needed to do this for a number of reasons. First of all, we needed to affect people's behavior so they actually stopped eating it. But also, if we dealt with very small forms, just basically small articles and news reports, then it becomes a he said, she said. We say GMOs are dangerous, and then the interviewer says, and the biotech industry says they're safe, and the FDA has approved them, and then no one gets any motivation to do anything. We're all confused, and nothing happens. So my focus was on to really educate certain people and to create that reframing of the debate. Now, it turns out when we started, hardly anyone knew what a GMO was. Now it's actually being ushered out of the food supply because of the tipping point that's underway. So actually this reframing did take hold, and IRT is largely credited for pioneering that. Now, one of the ways we did that was with long form descriptions. I used to print so many articles, long articles in our newsletters. And that was one of the main things I did when I was not traveling. I traveled more than 50% of the time, 6 to 9 months a year, for 13 years straight. But when I was home, I would write articles, but not just little treatments, but long ones, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages. And again, the purpose was to for those who were willing to invest the time, they would become antidoted to the Monsanto rhetoric. They would become advocates. I was arming the choir. And I was also describing many of these things in now more than 1,000 lectures and 1,000 interviews in 45 countries. Now, what happened in 2010 was interesting. I've been traveling around since 2003, planting seeds, changing people's lives here and there. And then I started to hear from people in the beginning of 2010 who were actually reciting from their own memory and their own understanding the dangers of GMOs with such specificity, nuance, and detail. And I found out they had studied our books and our articles and our newsletters, and they had really absorbed it, and they were attracting followings. So they had one person at a health food store, I think it was in Washington State, had his group. Another person had a group of autistic moms. People who had basically picked up the knowledge of this were starting to share it. So we realized we were creating these things but weren't aware of it. And so we quickly created the Tipping Point Network, which then organized the activists. And we also created the speaker training program, which gave people information how they can speak about it, both on a stage and also to individuals. And of course, we continued with our long form information. The book Genetic Roulette came out, details, a large book, 8 by 12, over 300 pages. But I also realized by that time that the short form was needed for politicians and other busy decision makers. And so I wrote that book so that you could read it either in detail with all the 1,123 endnotes, or I described a way that you could just scan it, or even just look at the headlines, because the headlines told the whole story, so someone could get through the book in less than an hour. So this is the way we've been working in terms of the length of our content, varying between long form and short form, but spending a lot of time on long form education. Now, when I came out with the movie Genetic Roulette, that was a landmark change. That had my book, Seeds of Deception, was the world's best-selling book on GMOs. I think within 2 days online, the Genetic Roulette movie surpassed every reader around the world, and within 7 days it had 1.2 million views and later up to 2 million views. So we realized that the currency now was not books, but the currency was video. And that a lot of people watched Genetic Roulette. It played over 400 times on PBS, 300 times on PBS stations. It was played on Link TV. It was played on Russian national TV. It was played all over the world, translated. It's been translated into Japanese. And I just got an email today that it's in the 3 years since it's been translated and moving around the country, it has completely transformed the anti-GMO movement there and the knowledge that is being understood about the dangers of GMOs. So I realized that video was the way forward. But again, we have an interesting thing between long form and short form. Earlier this year, we successfully raised about $25,000 to do preliminary production in short form videos, little 1.5 minute, 2 minute pieces. And we're going to test them. We're producing them now to see if they catch on, what information gets around the world. And we're going to focus on very specific bites. But as you know, as I just described, we're also dedicated to long form education so that those willing to take the deep dive really understand the issue and they can share it with others, no matter if they're just simply sharing it with friends or whether they're writers or whether they're speakers, etc. And so we're also now creating long form series. And this is the first one we're going to be doing is with Brent Wisner, who was the lawyer that won the $289 million case against Monsanto because they caused the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer in a groundskeeper of a school system in the Bay Area. And I know Brent. I was there during the closing arguments. I interviewed him right afterwards. You may have seen that on another live Facebook. And I was also on TV with him for an hour in the Doctor's TV show. And I realized he was really studying the information, absolutely studying it in detail. And whenever he was interviewed by, BBC or ABC, whatnot, he only had a chance to describe, a few sentences that would be reported. And the longer versions, maybe a couple of paragraphs. But I was aware that he had caught Monsanto red-handed, and I was aware of the details of it because I read his opening statement. I was there for his closing statement, and I know this stuff. And so I decided to do a long-form interview, cut up into small pieces, and the interview that I did took close to 4 hours. So we're going to break that up for you and have that available to you soon. So again, short videos for the masses, long videos for the deep dive, and now, of course, videos are the key. Now, what's happened is now that we've hit the tipping point, or it's actually underway in the United States, we're not finished. We still have a problem with gene editing because the biotech industry wants to claim that gene editing is just like natural breeding, and it's more precise and it's completely precise and predictable and safe, which is totally untrue. It's the same thing they said about GMOs initially. And the bad news today, which came across my inbox today, is that there is a gene-edited soybean that's going to be introduced to our food supply as early as this year. Not just grown, but introduced into our food supply as early as this year, and certainly next year if we don't turn it around. We also know that Roundup is not just sprayed on GMOs, it's also sprayed on wheat, barley, rye, oats, legumes. It's sprayed on vegetables and fruit. And so we are in a situation where we have to convince people not just to eat non-GMO, which is underway, but organic in order to protect themselves and future generations. We also want to focus more on animal feed because that's not quite coming along as much as the direct ingredients for the tipping point. And we want to also highlight people about the dangers of genetically engineered mosquitoes. It should be obvious, but it's not. And finally, we've been so successful in the United States, we want to take what we're doing here and export it, just like we did with Japan with the film Genetic Roulette, going back to Japan soon. We want to actually take not just take me in, but take all of our assets, all of the programs, translate it in a culturally appropriate way so that they have short form and long form. They have full-length films like Genetic Roulette, short ones that we'll be doing now, that they have articles, that they can get it out through their entire press structure, through word of mouth, through their activists, through their emails, etc. So we actually know exactly what to do. What we're lacking is the funds to do it. So I'd like to ask you to please make a donation to the Institute for Responsible Technology if any of this appeals to you. If you want to support our production of long form, if you want to support our production of translated materials, of visits to other countries so we can implement there with them and under their guidance what worked here. If you like the idea of promoting organic, not just non-GMO, if you like the idea of stopping genetically engineered mosquitoes, and you should like the idea of stopping genetically engineered mosquitoes. And what about the animal feed? Absolutely, we need to convert that, and we have some very powerful techniques and ideas and strategies waiting for funding. Oh my God, I have so many ideas as I travel around the world now and hear from all these different activists and doctors and scientists. I've got so many ideas that I want to implement and so little money to do it. Truly, we don't have a lot of money right now. I'm not going to talk about that for too long. I'm just going to say it would really help any amount, $5, $10. And if you can make that monthly, a recurring donation, that gives us the confidence that we can go ahead and plan. And we're not just waiting for the next month's support, because we don't have a year's worth of budget set aside. We don't have anywhere near that, and we need that. So please make a donation to the Institute for Responsible Technology, and you will be supporting the health and well-being, not only of the humans, but also our offspring and future generations, and also anything with DNA, which is currently being sought after by the biotech industry to alter and patent and release. So we're protecting all living beings and all future generations. Thank you for your support. And thank you for your support in the past and for sharing this information and sharing this video now so that others can be brought into the fold to understand what's going on and what they can do about it. Safe eating.